The cold hum of the Aegis's engines pulsed through the sleek hull, a steady heartbeat in the vast silence of deep space. Outside the viewport, the void spiral twisted and shimmered, a fractured wound in the fabric of time itself, swirling. Hues of indigo and violet danced with streaks of ghostly white light, like veins of energy exposed in a cosmic fracture. To the untrained eye, it might have been beautiful. To Captain Jessica Carter, it was a menace, a ticking bomb threatening to unravel everything humanity had fought to build. Jessica stood alone on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the rift. Her posture was rigid, betraying a tension that ran deeper than the surface. The pale blue of her eyes mirrored the distant stars beyond the glass, yet they held a storm of memories, memories of a family erased from existence by the very chaos she now sought to contain. A small holographic projection hovered beside her, displaying streams of fluctuating temporal data, a constant reminder of the fragile balance they struggled to maintain. "Captain," a voice interrupted, soft but urgent. Lieutenant Harris approached, eyes scanning the readouts. "New readings from the outer sensors. The rift's instability is increasing. Energy spikes are off the charts." Jessica didn't take her eyes off the spectacle beyond. "How much time do we have before the next collapse?" Her voice was steady, but carried the weight of unspoken fear. "Less than 48 hours, Harris answered. "If the void spiral fractures further, it could trigger a temporal cascade. Entire sectors could be wiped from history." A chill settled in the air, one that no artificial temperature control could alleviate. Jessica swallowed hard. The loss she carried was not just personal, it was a shadow cast over every life tethered to time's fragile thread. "Prepare the crew," she ordered, voice firm. "We're not just observers, we're the shield against oblivion." She turned from the viewport, shoulders squared, as the bridge came alive with coordinated purpose. Around her, the Aegis's crew moved with practiced precision, each member a vital cog in the battle against time's unraveling. Among them, whispers circulated of rumors about a faction called the Chrono Dominion, a rogue group believed to be manipulating the rift for their own gain. Jessica knew the stakes were higher than ever. Somewhere beyond the fractured veil lurked Mark Harrison, a man once a colleague, now a dangerous adversary whose obsession with rewriting history threatened to consume the very universe they both sought to protect. Her fingers brushed the silver pendant at her neck, a keepsake from a timeline that no longer existed, a reminder of what was lost and what might still be saved. As the Aegis adjusted its course, threading carefully through waves of distorted time, Jessica steeled herself. The coming storm would test not only her leadership, but the resilience of reality itself. Because in the vast silence of space, time was both ally and enemy, and she was the last guardian standing between order and chaos. The dim glow of alert. Lights bathed the Aegis's command center in hues of crimson and orange, casting long shadows across the faces of the crew as they prepared for the storm ahead. Jessica Carter stood at the helm, her eyes narrowing at the flickering images streaming in from distant sensor arrays. Somewhere beyond the swirling chaos of the void spiral, a shadow moved, calculated, relentless, and unmistakably human. "Captain, incoming transmission," Lieutenant Harris announced, her fingers dancing across the console. The bridge fell into a tense hush as the screen flickered to life, revealing a sharply dressed man with steel-gray eyes and an aura of cold authority. "Mark Harrison," Jessica breathed, the name tasting bitter on her tongue. The screen's occupant spoke with calm menace, voice smooth as obsidian. "Jessica, or should I say, Captain Carter, still clinging to your futile mission, I see. The Coalition's days are numbered." Jessica's jaw clenched. "Mark, stop this madness. You know what you're risking. The collapse of timelines. Entire civilizations erased. This isn't salvation. It's annihilation." A thin smile curled on Harrison's lips. "You misunderstand me. I seek to restore what was stolen. My family lost to temporal fractures, just like yours. I will rewrite history to save them all, no matter the cost. Your loss doesn't justify playing God, Jessica replied, her voice steel. We protect time's flow. We don't destroy it for personal vengeance. The transmission ended, abruptly leaving a charged silence hanging in the air. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. An explosion rocked the Aegis as spatial readings detected a violent shockwave emanating from the Coalition research station near the void spiral. Report, Jessica barked. Station under attack, Harris responded grimly. Chrono-Dominion forces, heavily armed. They're after our temporal tech. The Aegis shuddered as the hull groaned under the strain of the shockwave. Crew members scrambled. To stations, the bridge buzzed with controlled chaos. Jessica's mind raced. The station held years of research, key to stabilizing the void spiral. If it fell into Harrison's hands, the consequences would be catastrophic. Divert all power. To shields and weapons, she commanded. Prepare to engage. We can't let them take the station. The starfield outside transformed into a battlefield. Sleek Dominion fighters emerged from the swirling vortex, their dark hulls gleaming with deadly intent. The Aegis's weapons systems locked on, beams of concentrated energy slicing the void. As the battle raged, Jessica felt the weight of her responsibility crush down like gravity. Every move was a gamble with time itself. One wrong step could cascade into paradox, erasing everything she fought to protect. In the chaos, she caught sight of the temporal data streaming erratically, markers blinking red as the rift's instability spiked. Harrison's assault wasn't just physical. It was a calculated strike to destabilize the timeline fabric. Through the cacophony, Jessica's voice rang clear. Hold the line, protect the station, at all costs. The Aegis weaved through enemy fire, retaliating with precision. Yet Dominion's advance was relentless, pushing the Coalition to the brink. As debris floated past the viewport and the hum of failing systems grew louder, Jessica's eyes hardened with resolve. This was no longer a mission to observe the unraveling of time. It was a fight to stop a man who had become its greatest threat. And in this battle for history's very soul, failure was not an option. The Aegis surged forward, cutting through the fractured currents of the void spiral with precision born of desperation. Around them, the swirling temporal rift bent reality. Stars flickered, and moments stretched or snapped like fragile glass. Time here was a living thing, unpredictable and wild, and Jessica felt its cold fingers tugging at the edges of her mind. Approaching the spiral's inner edge, Lieutenant Harris reported, voice tight with urgency. Temporal distortions increasing exponentially. Jessica's eyes flicked to the monitors, where anomalies danced like spectral shadows, brief loops of repeated events, crew members flickering in and out of sight, whispers of forgotten memories threading through the data streams. The crew felt it too, unease settling into their bones as time warped unpredictably around them. Steady, Jessica commanded, gripping the console. Focus on the mission. Our window to intercept Harrison is closing fast. The ship trembled as a sudden ripple pulsed through space-time, and for a heartbeat, the crew saw themselves, a mirror image of their current selves, frozen in a moment just seconds past. The line between past and present blurred, and a collective shiver ran through the bridge. Temporal feedback loop detected, the science officer called out. It's affecting memory retention. Some crew are reporting déjà vu and lost time. Jessica's gaze locked onto the viewport, where the chaotic beauty of the spiral writhed like a living storm. We've trained for this, she said, quietly, more to herself than anyone else. Remember who you are. Remember why we fight. Tensions rose as the anomalies began to take their toll. Engineers struggled to stabilize power surges that flickered like heartbeat spikes, while communications struggled against interference that twisted voices into ghostly echoes. In the midst of the chaos, Debates flared between crew members. Should they push deeper into the spiral, risking further temporal degradation, or retreat to regroup? Jessica's leadership was tested, balancing caution with urgency. A hushed conversation between two officers caught her attention. "If we don't stop Harrison here," one whispered, "there won't be a future worth saving." The other nodded grimly. "But every step deeper we take risks unraveling ourselves." Dialogue crackled across the ship's comms, frustration, fear, and hope interwoven as the Aegis pressed forward. Then, a sudden alert shattered the fragile calm. A ship signature emerged from the depths of the spiral, sleek, dark, and ominous. It was Mark Harrison's flagship, cutting through the temporal storm with dangerous purpose. Jessica's heart tightened. The moment of confrontation was near. "Battle stations," she ordered, "prepare for temporal engagement." As the Aegis braced for conflict, Jessica stole a brief moment to reflect on the ideological chasm dividing her from Harrison. She fought to preserve the timeline's integrity, believing in the lessons of history and the necessity of accepting loss. Harrison, she knew, sought to rewrite the past itself, driven by a desperate need to reclaim what was lost. In this ever-shifting dance of time and fate, their battle was more than physical. It was a war of wills and ideals, played out against the backdrop of a universe on the brink of collapse. The spiral pulsed, the void echoed, and the stage was set for a collision that would ripple through eternity. The narrow corridor aboard Mark Harrison's flagship felt colder than the void outside. Jessica Carter moved with calculated precision, her footsteps muffled by the sterile hum of the ship's temporal engines. Around her, the air shimmered faintly, a subtle distortion caused by the proximity to the Nexus Core, the heart of the void spiral's fractured time stream. She clutched, a datapad against her side, its screen flickering with encrypted messages and glimpses of truths she wasn't sure she wanted to confront. Among the encrypted files, one detail stood out: a personal log from Harrison, a window into his fractured soul. Her mind replayed the words she'd heard over the static transmissions, the revelation that had twisted the course of this war. Harrison's family, lost to a temporal fracture years ago, vanished from history just like Jessica's own. Yet while she had sought to protect time's flow, Harrison had been consumed by grief and obsession, willing to burn the timeline to reshape his past. The corridor opened into a dimly lit chamber, the walls pulsating with energy. Jessica's heart quickened, not just from the danger, but from the weight of what this confrontation might mean. She activated a comlink. "Mark," she spoke quietly, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions beneath. "We don't have to do this. Our losses, they don't have to define the future." There was a long pause before his voice responded, cold yet tinged with something almost like sorrow. "Jessica, you don't understand. The past is broken, shattered by forces we can't control. I'm offering a chance to fix it, to save those we've lost." Her eyes narrowed, scanning the room as a holographic map of temporal fractures spun before her. At what cost? Erasing entire civilizations? Destroying lives that haven't even begun? You're gambling with everything. Mark stepped into view, a figure framed by the eerie glow of the Nexus Core. His face was lined with years of regret and determination. "Sacrifice is necessary for salvation. I won't let history condemn me to endless loss." Jessica's grip tightened on the datapad. "There's another way. We can stabilize the rift without rewriting history." His laugh was bitter. "You believe in rules that no longer apply. Time is fluid, Jessica, and I intend to master it." As their ideologies clashed, the ship shuddered violently. The Nexus Core's energy surged unpredictably, threatening to tear the flagship apart. "We don't have time for words," Jessica said, drawing her sidearm. "I won't let you destroy everything we've fought for." Mark's expression hardened. "Then prepare to lose." The chamber exploded into chaos as temporal energy rippled outward, warping reality itself. Shadows flickered, moments overlapped. And the battle for time's very soul ignited in a storm of light and fury. In that crucible, Jessica realized that this fight was not just for the present, but for every moment ever lived and yet to come. The air inside Mark Harrison's flagship was electric, charged with the unstable pulse of the Nexus Core at its heart. Jessica Carter led her small boarding party through the labyrinthine corridors, the walls humming with raw temporal energy that seemed to twist and distort the very fabric of reality around them. Each step felt heavier, as if time itself resisted their advance. Ahead, the faint glow of the Nexus Core bathed the chamber in a sickly blue light, casting long, wavering shadows that danced like ghosts across the metal walls. The core's immense power radiated waves of distortion, making the environment unpredictable. Seconds stretched or snapped, sounds echoed before they happened, and the air vibrated with the possibility of collapse. Jessica's mind raced. Mark Harrison's obsession had brought them here, a moment poised on the edge of annihilation or salvation. The chronosurge device she carried felt heavy against her side, a desperate gamble capable of collapsing the rift but risking erasure of everything in its sphere. "Stay close," she commanded softly to her team, her voice cutting through the distorted silence. "We don't have much time." The group moved cautiously, avoiding flickering patches of temporal instability. Suddenly, the corridor ahead shimmered and warped, revealing a flickering image of the past, Jessica's own memories bleeding through the fracture. Faces she once knew smiled briefly before dissolving into static. Her breath caught, but she pressed onward. At the chamber's threshold, Mark awaited, his silhouette framed by the undulating core, his eyes blazing with fierce determination and a haunting sorrow. The confrontation was inevitable. "Jessica," he said, voice echoing strangely, as if layered through multiple times at once, "you think you can stop me? This is bigger than us, bigger than time." She met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not trying to stop time, Mark. I'm trying to save it." The space between them crackled with tension as the chronosurge device hummed alive in her hand. Mark lunged, a blur of motion fueled by desperation. Blasts of temporal energy collided, distorting the chamber as past, present, and future tangled. In a chaotic storm, time folded around their battle, seconds looping, memories flashing, futures collapsing. Jessica's resolve hardened. With a steady breath, she activated the chronosurge. A pulse of radiant light burst outward, engulfing the Nexus Core and the room in a brilliant wave of energy. The core began to collapse, the ship trembling violently. Temporal fractures rippled through the fabric of reality, swallowing sounds and sights into a void of silence. In that blinding moment, everything hung suspended, as if time itself held its breath. Jessica's vision blurred, but her last thought was clear. Whatever the cost, the timeline must be protected. The chamber faded into darkness. The world returned to sound with a jarring, disorienting rush, like a tempest retreating after tearing through everything in its path. Jessica Carter's eyes fluttered open to dim, flickering lights and the distant groan of stressed metal. Around her, the remnants of Mark Harrison's flagship lay fractured and silent, caught in the slow unraveling of the temporal storm she had unleashed. The Nexus Core, once a swirling heart of chaotic power, was now a smoldering husk. Its collapse had sent ripples through space-time, ripples that threatened to erase more than just the Dominion's ambitions. The very fabric of reality wavered, fragile and trembling. Jessica pushed herself up, her muscles weak, but her mind razor-sharp. The Aegis's emergency comm crackled faintly nearby. "Captain Carter? This is Lieutenant Harris. Do you read me?" "Loud and clear," Jessica replied, voice hoarse but steady. "Status report. The rift is stabilizing," Harris said. Temporal fractures are beginning to seal. We're pulling the surviving coalition ships back through the void. Casualties are high, but the worst seems over. Jessica exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The battle had been won, but at a cost that echoed in every corner of her soul. She staggered to a viewport, looking out into the swirling aftermath, the void spiral now slowly knitting itself back together like a cosmic wound, healing with painstaking care. Stars that had flickered out began to shine again, their light steady and sure. But victory was bittersweet. Mark Harrison's fate remained unknown, lost in the chaos. Temporal maelstrom they had both ignited. His obsession had nearly undone everything. And yet, somewhere beneath the wreckage, echoes of his pain lingered, haunting the edges of Jessica's conscience. As the Aegis and its allies regrouped, Jessica convened with her senior officers. Plans were drawn to prevent future temporal warfare, but the weight of the past pressed heavily on them all. In quiet moments, Jessica found herself haunted by memories, faces of those lost to fractured timelines, including her own family. She understood now that time was not just a thread to be protected, but a tapestry woven with sacrifice and resilience. The galaxy had been given a chance to heal, but the scars remained, and Jessica knew that as long as time flowed, guardians would be needed to stand watch against those who would seek to bend the past, no matter the cost. The chronosurge device, now inert and silent, rested on the table beside her, a reminder of the fragile balance they had fought to preserve outside. The stars blinked steadily, a silent promise that even amidst chaos there was hope. As the Aegis and its allies regrouped, Jessica convened with her senior officers. Plans were drawn to prevent future temporal warfare, but the weight of the past pressed heavily on them all. In quiet moments, Jessica found herself haunted by memories, faces of those lost to fractured timelines, including her own family. She understood now that time was not just a thread to be protected, but a tapestry woven with sacrifice and resilience. The galaxy had been given a chance to heal, but the scars remained, and Jessica knew that as long as time flowed, guardians would be needed to stand watch against those who would seek to bend the past, no matter the cost. The chronosurge device, now inert and silent, rested on the table beside her, a reminder of the fragile balance they had fought to preserve. Outside, the stars blinked steadily, a silent promise that, even amidst chaos, there was hope. The Aegis drifted silently through stabilized space, its systems humming a cautious rhythm after the storm. Jessica Carter sat alone in the captain's quarters, the soft glow of distant stars filtering through the viewport and casting gentle light on the walls. The stillness was a fragile thing, a lull after chaos, and in it lay the weight of survival and sacrifice. Her fingers traced the edge of the chronosurge device. Their victory had sealed the void spiral, but the cost was etched deep in her bones. Faces flickered in her memory, the brave souls lost in the battle, the shattered timelines, and the ghost of Mark Harrison's desperate plea to rewrite what was gone. A haunting reminder that some wounds time itself could not heal. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Lieutenant Harris's voice crackled through the comlink. "Captain, Coalition Command has ratified the Mitchell Accord. Temporal warfare is now officially prohibited across all jurisdictions." Jessica nodded, though no one could see her. The accord was a beacon of hope, a promise forged from the fires of their ordeal. It declared that no faction could again manipulate. Time for conquest or vengeance, a fragile peace for a fragile universe. She rose and moved to the memorial chamber aboard the Aegis, where holographic images of those lost flickered softly, stars extinguished too soon in the endless flow of time. Crew members gathered quietly, their faces a mosaic of grief and resolve. Jessica stepped forward, her voice steady but heavy with meaning. "We honor those who sacrificed everything so that time might endure. We remember not to erase the past, but to learn from it. Our duty is to protect the flow of history, its joys, its sorrows, and its truths. Around her, the crew bowed their heads, the silence speaking volumes. Later, alone once more, Jessica gazed out at the cosmos. Time stretched infinitely, a vast river carrying all moments forward. She knew the peace was tenuous, a fragile thread in the endless weave of existence, but she also knew she was not alone. The Aegis and its crew stood as guardians, vigilant, determined, and ready to face whatever echoes the future might bring. Because time, she realized, was not just a battleground. It was a promise that no matter how dark the past, the present could forge a better tomorrow. And in that promise lay the true power to endure. The memorial grounds aboard the Aegis were bathed in the soft glow of distant nebulae, a gentle cascade of colors reflecting the fragile beauty of a universe forever changed. Jessica Carter stood among the gathered crew, their faces somber yet resolute, as holographic stars flickered one by one, each a tribute to those lost in the temporal wars. The air was thick with unspoken grief and hard-won hope. Silent prayers echoed through the chamber, carried not by words, but by the shared understanding of sacrifice and duty. Jessica's gaze drifted to the flickering image of Mark Harrison, no longer enemy, but a tragic soul consumed by loss and obsession, a mirror of her own pain. She stepped forward, voice steady but filled with the weight of everything they had endured. We have seen what happens when time is torn apart, when grief turns to vengeance, and the past is weaponized. But we have also seen resilience. The threads of history are fragile, yes, but they are woven by those who remember, who endure, and who choose to protect. Around her, the crew nodded, their eyes reflecting the countless lives saved and the uncounted moments yet to be lived. As the memorial faded, Jessica lingered, her thoughts drifting beyond the present. The rift was sealed, the Mitchell Accord in place, yet she knew the universe's fabric remained delicate. Temporal echoes, whispers of unresolved moments, still rippled faintly through space-time, a reminder that vigilance was eternal. Outside, the stars pulsed softly, a cosmic heartbeat marking the endless flow of moments yet to come. Jessica turned toward the bridge, the weight of her role as guardian settling firmly upon her shoulders. She was a sentinel at the edge of time, entrusted with its fragile care. The future was uncertain, a vast expanse of possibility stretching into the unknown, but one thing was certain. As long as there were those who cherished the past and believed, in tomorrow time would endure, and so would she. The Aegis sailed onward, a lone beacon in the boundless sea of stars, watchful, unwavering, and ready for the echoes beyond.